Second webinar this year. It's our third research study that we have done with UPCEA. This is actually our third webinar that we've done about AI search. We really started diving into it at the beginning of last year, into the AI search aspect of it, probably around the time that Google started testing their search generative experience was when we really started looking at it for clients. But Will really just dove in on the whole AI and generation of marketing content really a year before that, when ChatGPT was pretty new. So it's taken us a little bit to figure out exactly what we're doing for clients and all the tactics that we need in order to make things successful. But we've gotten to a really good place with that, and that's really exciting for us. As an agency, especially within higher education, this is going to make a really big difference for you guys. And so we're happy to have you here for that. So that was my very informal little lead up there. But thank you all very, very much for joining us today. So as I mentioned, this is our third study with UPCEA that we've done, and we gave a little bit of a preview of the data in our last webinar, but today Bruce is going to go a good bit deeper into that, and then Will and I are going to talk to you about what you should actually do with this information and how it can make a difference in your strategy. We're going to go into a good bit of tactics, kind of get to some technical stuff, but not super technical, just kind of nitty gritty on how you write content, how you should be adjusting the way that you do your offsite citations and all that good stuff. So we're looking forward to diving into that with you. So officially, here's what you can expect to walk away with today. The first is how prospective students use AI tools, search engines, and university sites, which are very important when researching programs. The second is which search platforms they trust most and how they perceive AI-driven search results. And then the third is how to create content that AI cites and how to build up your authority so that AI trusts you and wants to show your content. And so our goal is to make this research really actionable for you. So you're going to walk away not only understanding what's changing from what Bruce is going to talk about, but also what to do about it. And I'll just say this, AI is not replacing search. It's not replacing traditional search. It is really expanding it though. And so the institutions that adapt now will be the ones that prospects find first and trust most. There's a few resources to support you in your use of today's material. So in your Zoom toolbar, you'll see three features, the first of which are the resources. So this includes our AI search research study, our SEO fundamentals workbook, as well as our AI SEO roadmap offering. And then, of course, we have the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and drop in the chat, actually, where you're joining us from today. I'm joining you from Gulfport, Mississippi. And our Q&A. So add questions anytime in the Q&A, and we'll have some time at the end, but we might answer them via the chat as we go. So welcome back for all of our returning attendees, and hello to our UPCEA conference friends. For those of you that I haven't met yet, I'm Paula French, Director of Sales and Marketing here at Search Influence, and I've spent the last 16 years helping organizations grow through digital marketing. Most of that time, I was actually hands-on executing and optimizing SEO and paid advertising strategies, but now I focus on building new partnerships and helping institutions like yours find the right strategies to succeed online. Bruce.
Awesome. Thank you, Paula. Hello, everyone. My name is Bruce Etter. I'm the Senior Director of Research and Consulting here at UPCEA. I've been with UPCEA now in a variety of capacities since 2014. And really my role is to manage any and all research initiatives that come through our doors. So whether that be for many of the individual member institutions that I see in the chat here, a few that I say hello to directly, or some of our great partners like Search Influence and studies like this. So looking forward to today's conversation.
Hey everybody, I'm Will Scott. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Search Influence, and I've been working online since the last century, literally. Believe it or not, my first job out of school was actually in higher ed back in the late 90s. I ran systems and distance learning for Tulane's Department of Health Systems Management. And back then, distance learning was, inscribing lessons on a papyrus and shipping them off, by sea. Since then, our teams have worked with thousands of clients to drive traffic and enrollment through search and online ads. And from the start, we believe that none of this matters without the data to prove that it's working. Lately, my focus, passion, obsession, whatever you want to call it, has been on AI SEO, how AI is reshaping search and visibility. In fact, I recently taught the second iteration of a 6-hour AI SEO masterclass for SMX. They insist on calling it generative engine optimization, which I can't quite get with, but they pay me, I show up. The what I've seen in the time since I started talking about this, and the first time that I got up and presented about AI and its impact on content creation and SEO was like March of 2023. But this space is moving so very fast that it's really exciting. And honestly, after almost 30 years of doing SEO has re-energized me about the craft.
And we've got a special guest here from Bruce's team. Emily, do you want to say something before we move to the next slide?
Yes, thank you, Paula. Hi, everyone. I'm the research analyst for UPCEA, and I'll be quiet on this presentation, but I'll be kind of behind the scenes watching this unfold and answering any questions that may arise.
Well, at MEMS, this is a little preview. Emily and our team will be presenting all about this kind of stuff.
You bet. So hopefully y'all will come see us there. All right, so just a little bit about Search Influence. We are an award-winning boutique SEO and digital marketing agency with 20 years experience. We specialize in higher ed, but we also work across a few other key industries. This gives us a broad perspective of the marketing landscape and helps us apply insights across verticals. So we're not like 100% in higher ed where we're only ever thinking about education, and we can understand what's working in other industries and bring the best of that to education. When it comes to working with clients, we offer flexible partnerships. So we can do full service execution, we can consult, or we can create a hybrid model that really supports your in-house team. And we are proud to be an UPCEA Platinum Partner, a Google Premier Partner, and a certified woman-owned business. As Will mentioned, we're going to be at UPCEA MEMS in December, so we hope that you come to one of our sessions or stop by our booth in the exhibit hall to chat with us about some of these ideas or anything that you're dealing with right now. And I'll also be at the AMA Symposium for the Marketing of Higher Education next month, presenting with our client Tufts University about AI search.
So this is our third research study with UPCEA, and it's by far the most actionable. And that's because it answers the exact questions that higher ed marketers have been asking us. Over the past year in UPCEA sessions and hallway conversations, we've heard the same thing. How is AI changing the way students search? And what's actually different now? The research looks at how learners search overall, and specifically when exploring professional and continuing education programs. That's what makes this data so valuable. With that, I'll hand it over to Bruce, who'll walk through who qualified for the survey, what we found, and UPCEA's take on what it all means.
Awesome. Thank you, Will, and hello, everyone. It's great to be with you this afternoon. I'm going to be talking about a few of the key findings from the research, but if you're kind of a weirdo like me, before you do that, you always love to know what is the context surrounding this, right? And so I'm going to do a little bit of context setting around who these respondents are, what are the qualifications for this study, those sorts of things. And so while there's loads of research out there around search behavior, there's very little that's actually focused on professional and continuing education in that market, the PCE market. And that's really why we wanted to explore this, right? And so to do that, we surveyed over 1,000 individuals and over 700 of which met our qualifications. Well, what are those qualifications, you ask? Well, we wanted them to be between the ages of 18 and 60, have at least a high school diploma for education. 50% of those folks already had a bachelor's or master's degree, and have interest in enrolling in a PCE program. And 18% of those folks were already enrolled in a PCE program. So it gave us some current student perspective as well. And I share this really to help understand who these learners are. So when we start sifting through, what does this percentage mean? And what does that percentage mean? I think it'll help us, kind of keep that North Star the North Star. If you'd like a more in-depth detail about the methodology or the study participants or anything like that, you can download a copy of the report. I'll probably say that 10 more times, and I apologize. It's just there's so little time and so much to get to, and we'll just start it there. So let's talk about some of the key findings, right? So many of which I think are going to reaffirm a lot of hunches or feelings that a lot of marketers have about PCE students, but I think that's a really good thing, right? And the first piece here is search engines are still king, right? Prospects still rely on search engines and university websites to begin exploring their programming options, right? So just because AI and what some call GEO, of course, Will would never say that, but generative engine optimizations, they're the new thing, right? But that doesn't mean that we can just walk away from SEO. In fact, a lot of the data that we're going to be talking about and I'm going to be sharing with you today really reinforces the importance of SEO in an AI world, right? And to be clear, we need to continue to invest in search and particularly your website to stay competitive within this enrollment journey in this new enrollment landscape. So, with that, the SEO imperative is on full display on this slide, right? When we start looking at trust and asking when the most trusted place for information remains the university website, right? SEO is foundational to that at university or college site being found by a learner. Traditional search engines were the second most trusted source, right? And were approximately twice as trusted as AI search engines, which I think is very notable, right? Now, of course, the lines between what is AI and what is a traditional search engine are very much merging or blurring, particularly with the inclusion of AI overviews in Google and Bing and sites like that. And we'll talk a little bit more about those in just a moment. But the first thing I want to talk about related to searching there is the importance of page one. Of course, duh, you do not have to be a marketer to know that we do not want to show up on page 5 of search engine results. We really need to show up on page 1. And this is a tale as old as SEO. But the data here is quite compelling because over 80% of survey respondents said they are more likely to consider a program that shows up on page 1 of search results, right? That's a profound percentage. And if you've read Education Dynamics Modern Learner Report, that one found that I think it was roughly 2/3 of learners are considering 3 schools or less, right? So to be among that incredibly small consideration set, we need to be visible. That is the currency that we first trade in, and that can be a real challenge. And to achieve that goal, a lot of SEO strategies need to be operating at an even higher level than they currently are. Something Paul and Will are going to be talking about later in this conversation, those individual tactics of how to make that thing happen. So showing up on page 1 can mean a lot of different things. But with the way that Google and Bing and most of the major other search engines have organized the results, you all know this, the first piece of information you see is that AI overview. And make no mistake about it, potential learners are reading those AI overviews at a rate of nearly 8 out of 10 learners. So not only do you run the risk of not being seen if you're not included in that first page of results, or in the AI overview, but learners are more likely to trust brands that are cited by AI. And we're going to talk about some of the mechanics behind this, but the too long didn't read version is that AI views certain materials, such as university or college websites, as a trusted resource, right? Which has a cascading effect on the AI side and learners and trust, right? The trust for both of those groups and factors. So, and probably the least shocking thing that we will say on this webinar, AI tool usage is prevalent. Mind blown, I know. And while I kid, there's a lot to unpack with the use rate of AI tools, right? Half of these individuals are using AI tools at least weekly. This is understandably the norm. I would imagine if we raised our hands, a lot of us would say we're in the daily boat. But there's generational differences, right? So in general, as age increases, the percentage of AI use decreases. But there is kind of one anomaly here, our 27 to 29-year-old group. And that sample size is a little bit smaller. I don't know if we caught them on the wrong day or what, but that is just noteworthy. And it isn't just, using Chat GPT to create AI slop cat videos, which if you haven't seen those, they're genuinely absurd, and they're generating also equally absurd revenues on YouTube. But learners are now leveraging these tools for program research, right? And so the question we asked was, does AI help learners find their programs? The short answer is yes. Approximately 62% of respondents agreed with the statement that AI-generated search results improve their ability to find relevant programs. I think that's a pretty telling percentage there. We're talking about almost 2/3. And much like usage, younger age groups were more likely to agree with that than older age groups. However, this is a double-edged sword because the accuracy or trustworthiness of those searches and those programs is up for the debates in the minds of potential learners. So while a little over a third, 35%, say, yeah, those AI generated search results are accurate and trustworthy, an almost equal number, 29%, said, no, we disagree. As Will likes to say, these tools will never be worse than they are now, right? And so I think that that trust percentage is only going to increase as we move forward.
Mm-hmm. You know, Bruce, an extra point, an extra supportive point there is the fact that a large percentage of respondents say that the university website is still such a key tool for them. And I mean, you could also right, you could kind of say duh on that. But the point that I think is really to connect this to that is that people are still going to go to your site to verify that information and to make sure that it is really true and to find the canonical source of the information about your programs. Which is a benefit when you think about the downside of the decrease in clicks in traditional search. So if people are seeing less traffic because of this AI overview at the top of the page, your site, the good thing is that people are ultimately going to come to your site to really see the most important information, the most accurate information, and to convert.
Yeah, no, that's a really excellent point to add on there. And it's not just the clicks there too. It relates to this next piece around social media too, right? It's the search behavior isn't just diversifying with LLMs or what AI overviews are doing. It's also very much present in the social media side of the house, right? And to connect it to this slide, 2/3 of survey respondents said that they're more likely to consider a product or service that's mentioned or recommended on social media. And I think that's a pretty telling percentage, right? Additionally, a third of respondents said that they would be at least very likely to use social media platforms to search for professional or continuing education programs. Again, I'm not sure what the percentage was that I was expecting or hoping for, but a third seems like a lot to me that are going to be using social media to help them figure out what is the professional or continuing education program that they're going to pursue. And so the platforms that folks are using most commonly, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And I want to pause there and just ask, those of you who are on the webinar as institutional attendees, just do a brief reflection, right? What is your institution doing for PCE programming, and does it have a presence on those platforms? Why or why not, right? And now it might very much depend on your target audience because there are generational differences to this data, right? Individuals that are aged 23 to 26, they're way more likely to skew towards searching for YouTube, right? While those that are 27 to 29, over half are saying, we're going to use TikTok. And you can see additional detail of these generational differences, not just for this data point, but loads of other data points within the report itself. So all of this leads me to one question that I think we collectively as higher ed, right, struggle to answer effectively. And it's, how do we talk about ourselves and our offerings? I don't know if you saw this week, a Pew Research poll that came out found that 70% of Americans think higher education is generally going in the wrong direction, which is a 14% increase since 2020. Now, there are a multitude of reasons for why that is, and those perspectives around higher ed heading in the wrong direction. But this is part of the value equation, right? And so to combat this erosion and to be more visible to potential students and to LLMs, we need to do three things very clearly. We need to be declarative, we need to be specific, and we need to be precise. And historically, unless it's, a US news ranking, higher education kind of has this aw shucks type of bashfulness or humility that really doesn't do us any favors in the world of search, right? Higher education, specifically professional and continuing education, routinely offers considerable ROI. And we need to do a better job of telling our story in that frame. And so to help us do that, I'm going to turn it over to Paula and Will to talk about some of the tactics required to demonstrate how we shore up our SEO processes before moving to GEO ones.
Thank you, Bruce. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and talk about what all this means for us as marketers at a high level, a little bit more of a strategic view, and then I'm going to pass it to Will to get into the tactics. And so we have distilled these findings into some key insights that we see playing out every day in higher ed marketing. What do we see driving results for universities? And we're going to connect, these findings to what we're actually seeing in the work that we do for our clients. So the first key takeaway is about visibility. Being found is really half the battle. It's what earns you a place in that consideration set. And so with learners heavily relying on search and AI, it makes visibility your competitive advantage. We as marketers spend so much time thinking about our differentiation, fine-tuning our messaging, creative positioning. But the truth is, you don't even have that opportunity to prove that value if you're never seen. And so as Bruce mentioned, most learners are starting with an initial list of just 3 schools. So if you're not visible early, you're not even in the conversation. So yes, differentiation still matters, but it starts with discovery. You should be spending as much energy getting found as you do defining what makes you different. Which brings us to the fact that your search strategy has to expand to include AI search. We've heard from you that it's hard to move into action on this, which is one reason why we've got so many tactics to share with you. Your leaders are asking you what you're doing about AI, or you may actually be the one trying to make a case to invest resources in AI search. So we wanted to share a little comforting thing, which is rest assured, AI SEO is not a whole new practice. We really recommend you to think about it as an expansion of your search strategy because they support each other. It's all connected. Your website, search results, AI visibility, they now all work together as one integrated approach for 2025 and 2026. And foundational SEO really drives your visibility in AI search. It's a core piece of it. And so the same practices that help your program pages rank organically also help AI overviews, ChatGPT, and Perplexity find and understand your institution. These are things like clear structure, relevant content, and authority signals. And so without that foundation, your programs aren't even part of the data that the AI tools pull from, which means that you'll be invisible in the very systems that are shaping student discovery. We're hearing about AI everywhere. I know when I log into LinkedIn, it's mentioned in almost every post in my feed. It makes it seem like everybody has this AI search strategy thing figured out, and if you don't, you're behind. But I can tell you, as somebody who's spoken to dozens of higher ed marketers just this year about this topic, most institutions have not adapted their strategies yet. So if you're in this webinar and you're considering how to make it part of your strategy, you are already ahead. And as a proof point, I'm going to put up a poll asking you about your level of AI search strategy adoption. So as you answer that, I'll share a little anecdote from Will's SMX masterclass is that he polled his audience and found that fewer than 50% indicated familiarity with AI, SEO, and GEO tactics. That's just familiarity, let alone actually adopting the tactics. So let's see how our higher ed marketers are doing.
That was an audience of professional digital marketers, right? So so even there, the level of comfort in the new tools is very low.
Mhm. All right, let's see. Can you guys see the poll? Can you see the answers of the poll? Okay, all right. All right, so what we've got so far is, to what extent have you adapted your strategy for AI search? The highest, oh, let's see, it just jumped. Okay, highest is in progress. We've got some tactics in place. And the next highest is not started, no changes made yet. So, okay, y'all can't see the poll answers. Thank you very much, Tracy. I think I probably have to end the poll for you to see it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end it. Here we go. Share results. Now y'all should be able to see it. All right. Okay. So at the top, the most prevalent answer is that people are in progress. They have some tactics in place. So 44%, and then 34% not started, no changes made yet. 20% strategy exists, but not yet in place. Only 2% say that they have fully adapted and have a strategy running successfully. And, you know, that really is what we would expect at this point. I mean, there is a lot still to learn and a lot to be figured out. And as I said at the very beginning, you know, we've gotten to a really good place with this after, you know, a year and a half, 2 years, really diving in and understanding, you know, what are the nuances of AI search and what do we need to be doing differently. So there's a lot of headroom for growth here. And if you act now, you're going to be ahead of most institutions. And so at this point, you're not late yet. And so it's a good time to be getting started. Here is a data point that will help make the case for investment of time or money in AI search. So AI tools now meet and slightly outperform social media as a go-to source for obtaining information about programs. So when you think about your marketing investment, compare that to the average $116,000 that institutions spend every year on social media advertising. AI search deserves the same level of attention and resources as the channels you already trust to drive enrollment. So now I'm going to hand it to Will to get tactical and into the real meat of how you can adjust your strategy.
Thank you, Paula. The first step to your AI strategy is understanding how the foundational concepts of SEO translate to AI SEO. Keywords become entities. Instead of matching an exact keyword, AI is looking for clearly defined things: people, places, programs, and ideas. It's built on knowledge graphs, which means it understands relationships and context, not just strings of text. There's a shift from context to clarity. You want your content to speak to one clear core concept and include just enough supporting language to make that concept unmistakably clear. One of my SEO colleagues uses a really difficult word that I love to repeat, which is monosemanticity, right? It's like you want to be about one thing. That's what helps AI disambiguate, to know exactly what you mean and what you don't. Links don't matter as much as citations. Traditional SEO relied on backlinks for authority. In AI SEO, credibility comes from being mentioned and referenced in trusted authoritative places, not just linked. And foundational SEO still matters. You still want solid technicals, clean structure, and good content, but you can layer AI SEO on top of that to expand your visibility in AI overviews and other generated results. When we talk about AI SEO, we're not talking about a totally new discipline. We're talking about applying SEO fundamentals in a way that helps AI understand your content. The goal isn't to game the model. It's to make your meaning unmistakable. You want AI to recognize exactly what your page represents and connect it to related, trusted entities. You might be wondering, if AI overviews are taking up so much real estate, does organic still matter? It does, a lot. Organic results still drive clicks, and those same rankings often feed AI overviews. We see this in our client data. For example, medical billing and coding degree. LSU Online ranks #1 organically. Ultimate Medical Academy ranks #3. In the AI overview, they are 2 of the top 3 citations. Those are brands AI understands, and that's exactly what we want for you. AI understands your brand through its knowledge graph, the web of connections that define who you are, what you offer, who's involved, and where you operate. For Tufts University College, for example, the brand sits at the center of a network that includes people, instructors, programs, leaders, alumni, locations, their Medford campus, or their online programs, products, pre-college, professional certificates, OSHA lifelong learning, topics, expertise for which Tufts is known: healthcare management, sustainability, data analytics. So when you're optimizing for AI search, focus first on reinforcing those product and topic entities. They're what users usually search for. The others, people, places, and services, give context and credibility, helping AI connect the dots and fully understand your brand. Now let's shift from the big picture to the practical, what you can actually do on your university site to improve AI visibility. These tactics build on the foundation we've just covered: clarity, credibility, and structure. Let's start with content. Assume you already have a solid program, pages, or blog posts. Here's how to make them AI ready. Go beyond keywords. Think entities, the things your content is about. Looking at Wikipedia or Wikidata can help you see which entities define your brand and programs. Be specific and direct. Write like you're answering a question, even if it's not a literal Q&A. Clear, fact-based statements are what AI engines use to understand meaning. Chunk your content. Break text into short, scannable blocks, around 170 to 200 characters, so AI can easily parse these ideas. Think of it like writing for featured snippets: concise, structured, and digestible. Use structure: H1s, H2s, bulleted lists, etc. These kinds of things have always mattered for the scannability of content by humans, and they matter as well for AI. The clearer your hierarchy, the easier it is for AI to elevate your key points. Build your authority with citations. Paul is going to talk a lot more about this, but if you link out to trusted external sources and to your own experts, you help the AI to verify credibility. When you reference a field or concept, link to the canonical sources. When you mention an instructor or thought leader, link to their CV or LinkedIn. These are signals AI uses to validate who you are and what you know. So let's go a little deeper on writing style, because how you phrase information changes how AI understands it. You want to write in clear, fact-based statements, subject, predicate, object relationships. For example, Tufts University College offers pre-college and lifelong learning programs. It's a simple fact, and one that AI can easily extract and reuse in AI overviews or chat responses. This structure is called a semantic triple. The more often you use these triples on your site and on sites that reference you, the more visible your content becomes in AI results. This doesn't mean write like a robot. You can overlap this style of writing by layering related facts into your existing content. Think of it as writing with clarity first, style second. Here's what that looks like in practice. On the left, we've got a typical university paragraph, long, dense, and a little fuzzy. On the right, we rewrote it with structure and precision, short sentences, clear relationships, and deliberate use of supporting terms. The goal isn't to sound mechanical, it's to make your content easier for both humans and AI to understand. Internal links, the links between your own pages, are another way to strengthen entity relationships. If you use entity-rich anchor text instead of vague phrases, like learn more or click here, for example, link directly on MBA in healthcare management instead of read more about the program. We've come full circle here, interestingly. Years ago, keyword-rich anchor texts were standard. Then we swung to softer CTAs, and now with AI SEO, we're back to clarity and context. The anchor text itself helps AI connect the dots between entities on your site. And then finally, I saw this in the chat from Corey, schema, which is delivered typically in JSON LD. Schema.org launched back in 2014, and originally the way that a lot of us were using it was for making our rich snippets richer, right? So review stars or recipe cards or that sort of thing. But it's become a lot more valuable with AI search. It doesn't just label your content, it also helps you to think more clearly about what you need to be pointing out to the AI engines. Start by defining your core entity, your institution, then use same as schema to link to your verified profiles and directories. That tells AI, these are all us. For universities, educational occupational program schema is useful. And there's still, there's like a debate in the SEO world about how much schema data actually ends up in the large language models. But remember, AI search is usually not a pure response from the LLM. It's usually retrieval augmented generation. So all of the value of that schema in traditional search does in fact add to how you're going to show up in the AI plus search. The code on this slide is simplified just to make it easy to follow. If you want real world schema examples, we can give you a ton of them. I actually built a tool for our internal team that is available as a WordPress plugin if anybody wants to play with it. And you can reach out to me and ask me about it. I called it a tool, but it's more of a toy than a tool. But it definitely helps to have a good process and thought process around schema and the connections that you're making under the hood as well as on the page.
All right, so now let's move into what you can do beyond your own website. How do other sites help build your authority? So these signals are not just links. Links are still helpful, but they're not just links. These are additional ways that AI can recognize your credibility through relationships between brands, entities, and content. So there are multiple SEO benefits for building your presence on other websites. The first is that classic SEO technique of links. This builds trust through that direct connection. We used to always say links are like votes for your site. The second key benefit are citations, which we've talked a lot about now. They build your reputation even without a link. And the third benefit is Barnacle SEO, which helps your brand leverage the authority of stronger sites. So content about you on those sites, LinkedIn, Reddit, best of lists, are likely to get referenced in AI. So you might wonder if you really need help with your authority because you're a university, right? This whole section is about building up your authority on other sites. It's really like authority and relevance. But you might wonder if you really need help with your authority because you're a university, right? Like who's more trusted? But it is correct that university sites are already super strong because of the .edu and other factors. But what we find is that individual schools or programs or deeper pages usually lack these critical authority signals. So it is still your job as a marketer to build those up. Let's dig into two key citation concepts that matter for AI visibility: co-citation and co-occurrence. So a lot of people will tell you to build citations, but this is like getting into like why it matters and like how to do it in a really strong way. So co-citation is when your institution is mentioned alongside other reputable universities or orgs. So for example, when Tulane SOPA is mentioned alongside the ABA, it strengthens Tulane's brand in relation to legal topics. Another example is when a smaller or newer program is listed alongside established programs on a top 10 list. The smaller program earns credibility by association. This is super important. Then co-occurrence happens when your brand and your key topics frequently appear together, like Tufts University College and HR skills. So together, co-citation and co-occurrence strengthen how AI understands who you're connected to, who you're similar to, and what you're known for. So next, we're going to go into some examples about how to create those signals. And these are things that are like totally within your control. Because a lot of people think about link building, like think of it as like really something hard, but these are things that are within your control and like realistic things that you can do. So in our first example, we have a LinkedIn article about HR skills that's supporting the HR Management Essentials course at Tufts. We published a LinkedIn post that then links to the LinkedIn article, and then the article links to the website's program page that we actually want AI to cite. So that's like kind of classic link building. Early results for this have the program page cited on Perplexity for the prompt, what are some good HR certificate programs for business leaders? And if you look closely, which is probably hard to do on this, so you'll just have to believe me, Tufts is the only individual university listed. The others are, we have 2 top 10 lists or top whatever lists and SHRM. And then they're the only university that's listed as an AI citation. In the next example, we published a really well-optimized blog post about best careers for remote work on LSU Online's site. Then we published a derivative linked article, derivative YouTube video, and a LinkedIn carousel post that summarizes the points in the blog. So the goal here was to create variations of the same message in multiple formats on multiple channels that all support the topical authority through co-occurrence and links back to the deep program page on the website that we want to rank. And so this tightly knit topical authority strategy really works. So starting in July, after these pieces were published, the blog post began being cited by AI and has persisted. So it's cited in both Google's AI overviews and ChatGPT for the prompt best careers for remote work. So this is driven really by the combination of that strong blog content written with AI best practices and these multiple offsite references that provide the citations in the best way. Authority can also be accelerated through sponsored placements. So awards, features, listings, these all support that co-citation and align your brand with other credible names. So it also reinforces your semantic relevance around key topics. And so you'll benefit from these sites' audiences, their search authority, and in the process, you'll strengthen your own AI and your own SEO authority. There are so many ways and places to build citations, and most of them are things that your marketing team is already doing, things you might already be paying for. So now that you understand these ideas of how you can best leverage those placements, you can go make some edits, bring in these ideas of, co-citation and co-occurrence, and really leverage these placements that you already have or already getting to strengthen your AI visibility. So we would begin with online directories and sponsored content. Those are super low hanging fruit. And then I would layer in media mentions, thought leadership placements. All of these count as authority signals. It's all about how you use them to support your SEO. And then don't overlook simple things like conference bios or association listings. Every consistent mention helps.
Sorry, I was answering Art's question. One of the biggest questions we get is about tracking. How do we actually know when we're being seen or cited in AI search? It's the right question, and one the entire industry is still figuring out. Visibility tracking for AI search is evolving fast. At Search Influence, we're investing heavily in R&D to understand which tools are giving us the clearest, most actionable data. You can get a lot of good information from Google Analytics, or if you're on another analytics platform, you can see similar stuff. In GA4, we can identify when AI engines are driving traffic to your site, and this is the limitation of tools like analytics and Google's Search Console, is that they really only become valuable when there's a visit. We've seen traffic from AI engines increasing exponentially over the past year. And one of the things that we're finding is that the quality of that traffic does appear to be higher. In other words, there's a higher propensity to convert. There's a significantly higher time on site where a typical organic search visitor may hang around for a minute or less. A visitor that's referred by an AI engine may be around for up to 4 minutes, which says to us that they're finding what they want. With the right filters in analytics and in Google Search Console, which I'll show you in a second, you can see pretty well the impact of those AI engines. So it's only part of the picture. What we really want to understand is what people are searching when they don't click. The rise of zero-click searches is a real challenge, but it's also a brand opportunity. When you're cited in an AI answer, even without a click, your brand is still in the conversation, which is significantly better than the alternative. As part of, as part of our research, we've looked at dozens of AI search tracking tools. The one that we've integrated into our reporting is called Scrunch, and I definitely recommend it, but there's a few others that I also think are worth a look depending on your use case. And we chose Scrunch because at the time in the early development of these tools, it was the one that enabled us to most seamlessly integrate it with the reporting systems that we already use for clients, which they get a lot of value from. So Scrunch lets us see how often a brand or page is cited compared to competitors and which sources AI is pulling from. And to an earlier question that I think came from Art in the chat, what I find, what you don't know necessarily which are the most prominent citation sources, by industry, but by using a tool like Scrunch, you can see exactly which are the citation sources for the prompts that matter to you. It's often not your site or your competitors. It's more often news articles, comparison pages, review content. And once you know who's getting cited, you can start to influence those relationships. Another interesting feature that some of these tools are coming out with is the ability to see how frequently you're getting crawled by the AI engines. And what I'll tell you from our own data is that we're seeing as much crawling from AI engines as we are from Google's indexers. I talked about Google Search Console, and this is a regular expression that we use. If you're super geeky, you may tell me how it could be better. But basically what it does is it enables you to extract question-related searches from Google Search Console. And the reason this is important is that we see that more often than not, a question phrased prompt or search will get an AI overview in Google, and it's certainly the way that a lot of us talk to the chat interfaces for the LLMs. When you know what people are asking and which questions trigger AI answers, you can tailor your content to show up in both organic results and AI overviews. We've got a more robust internal tool that looks at Search Console data as well as a few different APIs where we can get questions related data. And it's a great way to start. And there's not yet a really robust data set of what people are actually typing into the AI engines, and they're keeping that to themselves because it's proprietary. But we can make some good guesses based on question-related searches that we know are happening out there. So these tools aren't perfect yet. I like to say about analytics that they're all wrong, right? It's a windsock. It's not a GPS. They're directional. So you you can get a better sense of growth and what's having an impact, but it's not necessarily uh, precise as I think we would all like it to be.
Thank you, Will. All right, we've given you a lot. So let me put a bit of a bow on it for you before we get into Q&A. So here are 5 ways to get going with what we've talked about today. Start by Googling yourself and your program searches and just see what shows up. So this will give you a baseline of where you are or aren't visible. Then edit your profiles and directories so that they're consistent and complete, and they're reinforcing those entities and building up your credibility with co-citations and co-occurrence. Like, you can control whether or not you list your ABET accreditation or your ABA accreditation or whatever accreditation is most relevant for your program. You can put that in your niche.com profile. You can well optimize your niche.com profile to include the things that you want to show up for. The third is to add factual statements to your blogs and content on your site, add internal links to your site. 4 is repurpose blogs or program pages into new formats. You can create those multiple authority signals and extend your reach. So if somebody is searching on social media, you're also getting a bite at that apple, which we didn't really talk too much about that, but like, that is a great place, another angle of why you want to be creating this content in different formats. And 5 is work with PR to distribute press releases and earn media coverage that will build your visibility and trust in your program, like going down deep to these specific programs that you want to be found for, not just your brand at a high level. So if you haven't already downloaded the full study, grab it under the resources panel. You'll also find our SEO fundamentals workbook there, as well as our AI SEO roadmap offering. And if you are looking for help, of course, we are here to help you. Search Influence can provide strategic and tactical SEO support. We can give you help, expand your capacity, expand your expertise, and really keep that momentum going, being essentially like an accountability partner to make sure that you're really doing the things that you need to be doing. And then we help optimize and track and monitor your results. So if you want to get a conversation going, you can go to workwithsi.com. It'll book a call with me, and we can work together to figure out the right next step for your strategy. All right, we've gotten a lot of great questions throughout. Let's see, what have we not answered?
I think I got everything in the chat. If I didn't get your question in the chat, please throw it in the Q&A. Yeah.
Okay.
There's one question in the Q&A, which is actually it's a good general question. Anonymous attendee asks, what specific advice would you give for taking some of the advice for brand new programs that don't have a digital presence history already? I'll tell you, we helped Maine College of Art and Design launch a whole new set of online programs. They're kind of entry into it. We started this process around a year ago, and they are doing very well in AI. And I think it's because we came out of the gate with well-structured content, and because some of their and it's interesting because they're not unique programs. They're masters in art education. I think there's one in maybe in art therapy. That's probably wrong. Don't quote me. But by assuring that as we launched new pages, we were creating them with good semantic content and backing them up with schema, we did a really they did a really good job of showing up pretty quickly, and that's for national searches, like not Maine, Northeast, etc., even though they are a smaller school in the Northeast. So I think if you're conscious as you're creating content for new programs of making it as semantically rich as you can, then you have a leg up. Then the other thing is to think about the things that to think about the things that Paula talked about, which were what can you do to get yourself onto lists? You as a member of the faculty or staff can certainly post about the programs in places where we know that AI likes to look. So just be, the more you're out there talking about it and you're associating school with program, the more likely you are to show up. Let's see. Other questions. Okay. Michael Rains, do you think, hey, Michael, do you think page site structure has a big impact on AI, e.g. breaking up associate and bachelor pages versus one big undergraduate page? I think the answer is definitely yes. And in fact, some recent data, I don't recall where it was that I saw, suggested that on-page optimization with a heavy hand towards semantic SEO can have a big impact. The other thing, and I said this in my response in the chat, the more a page can be about one thing, and if it's an undergraduate program and a graduate program that are both about the exact same thing, let's say that it's a degree in data science or analytics, then you can be about data science and analytics and degrees in those, and the undergraduate and graduate might make sense together. But I think that in a big kind of comprehensive graduate and undergraduate programs at my school, you probably want to think about how those can be broken up. Uh, Another anonymous attendee asks, our website is very custom to the point where our web development team struggles to implement schema. Can other tactics make up for a lack of schema markup, or is this an essential part of AI search optimization? I think that short answer, if you include all of the entities in a clear way in the visible text on the page, you are more than halfway there. What I would suggest to you is that there's probably other ways to implement schema than the ways that the technical people are thinking about it. If you run ads, for instance, you probably have like Google Tag Manager installed, and we've done some testing where we've been able to, on a page-by-page basis, insert schema through Google Tag Manager and have it actually show up and get validated. So it may not be that it's technically not possible. It may be that they just haven't figured it out yet. And that's cool. It's a complex stuff. Let's see, we have in the chat, Andrea says, putting together pilot marketing launch to show our leadership how investment in marketing can confer strong ROI. Should we start with one course or a portfolio of programs? For example, one type of project management course or our portfolio of offerings related to project management. That's totally a budget question, Andrea. The I know that we've talked to a bunch of schools who like to think portfolio, and the challenge is that a portfolio is neither a keyword nor an entity, right? Where a program might be. So if you can think about it, like I said, more than anything else, it's a budget issue, whether that's time or money. If you can only afford to launch a program, then you can launch the heck out of that program, right? But if you can't afford and you try to publicize an entire portfolio, that's going to be more challenging. Over in the Emily in the Q&A asks, if we're all struggling to track AI search appearance and referral traffic is a smaller portion of overall traffic to a site, how do you suggest people structure the goals of their AI strategy? I actually, so my thinking on this is that it's unfortunately blowing up our KPIs, right? We have a client, New Orleans Tourism actually, who their board level KPIs were around sessions on the website. And they're a travel and leisure site, which means that their traffic has reduced by about 80% this year, right? Because all of the questions that they used to answer are getting answered by AI overviews. So the traditional KPIs are kind of destroyed, sadly. And I think that the real answer to this is, pick a metric that feels meaningful to you. And to me, I would be tempted to stand up one of the AI tracking tools, the AI SEO tracking tools, like Scrunch. There's another one I like a lot called Rank Scale, and put yourself and what you perceive to be your competitors in there, and look at your percentage of penetration, because they track a bunch of really good stuff. And so if you can pick one of those metrics that feels meaningful to you, whether that's, Can't read that.
I
But
know. It's
but if you
right
you know
here.
if you pick a metric that feels meaningful, whether that's percentage of citations, because what happens is you build a set of prompts and it then tells you what percentage of those you show up for and compares you against competition, that might be a decent replacement. That might be a decent replacement for your older KPIs. Um, Gail asks in the chat, what social platforms do you find are being crawled the most, or are most influential in AI? I think that what the data seems to suggest, and this is an open interpretation whether you think it's a social platform, is that Reddit is really important, right? And so if you can find your way into those conversations on a global level, and I answered this also earlier in the chat, on a global level, Reddit is showing up quite a lot. But on a niche or vertical level, it may be something else, right? There may be something other than Reddit. Now, there are a lot of schools related conversations happening on Reddit. This is not in the slides, but this is anybody who stuck around is going to get the money right here. If you have not, as a school, created a subreddit for yourself, for your department, for your brand, go do it now. And find somebody on your team who wants to engage authentically there. Something that I'm recommending right now is create your subreddit, and anything that you would have published on your blog or to LinkedIn, etc., publish it on your own branded subreddit. It's not, I mean, are you going to get a ton of engagement? Probably not, but at least you're staking a claim there. And when conversations are happening on Reddit that are about you, you can bring them back home so that you can start to get them engaged in your content. I think that was all of the questions. Come on.
I think it was.
We got 3 more minutes here.
There you go. Wait, one more from Gail.
Oh,
Gail says she
Gail,
has more. We'd be happy to talk to you
go
another
to,
time too, Gail.
go to workwithsi.com and and schedule some time. We'll be happy to answer all the questions. So for the subreddit, I think it depends on how distinct you are, right? Um, the for so for instance, we tend to work, search influence, we tend to work with the same demographic that UPCEA serves, right? Which is continuing professional and online education. And so these are oftentimes these are school of professional advancement, university, college, right? Um, Later this afternoon, I'm talking to Stanford's continuing medical education, right? So I think that those are distinct enough, and their professional focus says to me, I would want my own subreddit. I wouldn't want to try to be SOPA, School of Professional Advancement, on tulane.edu, right? It's a very different brand and a very different focus. So my gut says I would do it at the department level.
All righty. I'm going to say one quick thing before we head out, which is we also have our AI search strategy labs that we're doing in conjunction with this webinar. So we'll see some of you guys next week on those. If you have not already filled out the survey, please, please, please do. We are going to use the survey answers to bring custom insights for you. These sessions are really meant to be coaching opportunities for you so that you can get like real answers to these kinds of questions, but like we get to go even deeper and like pull things up on the screen. We had to add a third session because the 10/28 at 2 p.m. Eastern actually overbooked. So we are trying to get people from that one to move to the morning session that we added. So if you can move, let me know. But with that, we probably will have a couple of extra spots in that session, early session on Tuesday. So this Tuesday, 10/28, we're having a session at noon Eastern, 11 Central. So if you want to possibly get into that, shoot me an email and we'll see if we can squeeze you into that. It depends on how many people are able to move over. Fill out that form, fill out the survey. I think that Francis is going to throw into the chat. Yep, thank you. And if you want to schedule time with me and Will, go to workwithsi.com.
And
Thank
those labs are going to be super, super tactical. You know, we're going to go from keyword to entities. We're going to look at your web pages and tell you how much they suck or how much they're awesome, right? So it's going to be very interactive. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's exactly the way I like to approach this stuff.
Awesome. Y'all have a great afternoon, and we'll hopefully see y'all next week. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.